Hey, welcome back to the shop. I'm Jason, and today we are working on Bertha, my affectionately named F350. I'm replacing the batteries early because they have started to show signs of weakness, potentially a failed cell, and the corrosion is insane. I'm sure if you have a 17 plus Super Duty truck, you're dealing with this too. These flooded lead acid batteries, they vent like crazy and they corrode the heck out of the terminals. So I clean mine, I don't know, every 6 weeks, every 2 months. I have a wax coating on there and still, it's a pain in the butt. Plus, this last week, I've been getting some really slow starts and some funky electronic things going on inside the truck. I've had a bunch of weird things, and when I scanned the truck with Forscan, there were a bunch of low voltage faults. So I'm going to address this. The truck's in warranty, but I don't want these crappy batteries, so I bought a set of AGM batteries that I'm going to be throwing in with a 4-year warranty. It is what it is. I'm not going to worry about the couple $100 for the peace of mind that this is going to give me. Plus, the experience at my local Ford dealer is and has been abysmal, and I'd rather just do the work myself than deal with their nonsense. So let's get to replacing the batteries. So if I'm going to be replacing the batteries, what am I going to use? Well, I'm going to be using these EverStart Platinums from Walmart. Yep, bunch of you just clicked out already because I said Walmart, right? Well, Johnson Controls is actually the manufacturer who produces this battery. They happen to also produce for Toyota, for BMW, Optima. There's a third of the global battery market is produced by Johnson Controls. So I'm fairly confident that even if this is a cheaper chemistry just for Walmart, I paid $169.84 a piece for these, and they have a $24 core on top of that each. So what I'm doing is I'm floating both batteries to the same voltage with my charger here first, so that when I go to put them in the truck, they're going to be fairly even, or mostly even, so that the truck doesn't have to compensate and charge one of them up. And I'll be clearing the BMS using Forscan. For some of you out there, you're probably wondering what the BMS is. Let me show you. So I can't actually show you the BMS, but I can show you a part of the system, or at least one of the ways you'll identify that your vehicle has it, and that's through this loop here mounted to the ground cable. The BMS is a battery management system, and what it does is it's monitoring the outflow of current through your battery system. They're wired in parallel, so they're sharing current, but they're not multiplying voltage, so it's still a 12-volt system. So the BMS is monitoring the current through there and managing the voltage so that if it sees that you drop below whatever its threshold voltage in the system, it will start turning off the seat heater, the steering wheel heater, leave ventilation on because you need to be able to see, but it'll turn off ancillary electrical loads to protect the batteries to make sure that you get to your destination without damaging a battery. Obviously, it's going to have to throw some warnings on the dash, but it's actually a pretty cool system, and I'll be going in and clearing that so that the memory will be neutralized and it'll start with a fresh set of batteries instead of it trying to charge my new batteries to where these batteries were, because one of them, in my opinion, is failing. When I go to start the truck, I'm dropping to between 7 and 8, sometimes 8.5, 9 volts on my voltmeter. What that tells me is that I have a cell somewhere that is shorted and it's not getting the full potential out of these batteries, potentially 2 cells. Each one of these cells in a battery is 2.3 volts, and I should be at just over 13 volts total in each one of these. And with those together, more than enough power to start this truck. But something is awry, and I don't want to be stuck, or I don't want my wife stuck out, and we can't start the truck. So let's start by disconnecting the secondary battery, which happens to be on the driver's side. So I'm sure some of you have already run down the Google train and you've discovered that these Motorcraft batteries are also made by Johnson Controls. Yeah, that's true. It's probably a bit of a contradiction to put faith in those EverStarts versus these, but the EverStarts are a sealed battery where these are a flooded lead acid, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. Procedurally speaking, as you go to disconnect these, there's 2 ways of going about it. You can disconnect the negative here on the driver's side. This is the secondary cable. Then move over to the negative on the primary battery on the passenger side. then the positive, covering your positive to make sure that it doesn't touch anything because this one's still connected. Then come over here and disconnect this one. That will leave the truck with no voltage, and you'll have to reset a bunch of different things. What I'm gonna do is one battery at a time, covering my terminal so that I don't shock anything, and keeping all of my settings intact. To start, you're gonna need a 10mm deep socket. This is a magnetic deep socket on a locking extension. We're gonna pull our hold downs off. We wanna get both of these off because, well, they're all corroded and look like crap, so we gotta clean them up and paint them. Your negative cable here on the driver's side has a bracket that is adhered to the top of that. Hold it down. And you can see I've taken these apart. I sandblasted them once and repainted them, and still the corrosion has broken free. So this time I'm not gonna sandblast the whole thing. What I'll wind up doing is I'll just hit this with a wire wheel, and then I'll repaint it so that it keeps down on any potential future corrosion. Even though these are like 10 bucks, I can fix it and make it work for me. You really don't need the impact for this one because you don't want to break this off and spin it too fast. Crank it side to side a little bit, it'll pop off nice and easy. Our positive cable, we're gonna break free. And you can see I've got these extra wires here attached. That's because I have a trickle charger attachment plumbed down and through to the front so that if the truck's gonna sit for a while, I can throw a charger on it. Then we have a rag to wrap around our positive cable to keep it from contacting or striking on anything. Now, I probably should have done this already, but I'm gonna get something to protect my fender. Hold tight. So this might seem a little off, but what I like to do first is I've got this giant roll of moving wrap or cellophane. I take it sticks to the fender nice. And I start with this. Now I can throw something up here as a fender cover so that if I'm not careful with this battery coming out, then there'll be at least a little bit of a barrier. All right, now you got to summon your Hercules finger strength, unless you have a hold down to grab it by. Pull that bad boy out. Okay, with our battery out, we need to get the insulation blanket off, transfer it over to our new battery, and we'll pop that up in the truck. All right, our new battery has a handle. That makes it pretty nice. All right, after some time with the wire wheel and some spray paint, I've got these guys back together, ready to lock down the battery. When you're putting these on, it's important to remember that they're meant to hold the battery in place more than they're meant to clamp it down. So you want it tight, but you don't want it so tight that the battery isn't going to be able to expand and contract with the temperature changes and with voltage flowing through it. All right, now we'll get our positive terminal on. I've already cleaned the inside of the terminals with a battery brush. Use the assisting tool to get the terminal down nice and flush. You're not cranking down on these so tight that, just tight enough that it's not going to come loose. And I'm just assisting it with the hammer. I'm not really moving it that far. I'm not damaging the terminal or the lug inside the battery. Though I'm sure some of you will disagree. Okay, double check. Now, You can choose to use the anti-corrosion washers and put those on first. You can spray paint your terminals to try to protect them. You can wax coat them, which is what I'm gonna do. For my tech days, I've got this protective wax. I just touch up the corners. We'll pop that battery out over there. Same procedure as this one, and then we'll move on to adjusting our BMS and Forscan. All right, quick tip. The driver's side battery was quite a bit tougher to get out. I couldn't get my fingers to fit down inside to grab the sides. So what I used is these pre-bent, I don't know, 1/8 inch, 3/16 steel hooks that I use when I'm hanging brake calipers under a car. I just grabbed them underneath on both sides, and then I was able to yank it out pretty simply and get around all the cabling. You could use a tie down or any number of different strap methods to get through there, but I thought that this was a simple way to just grab a hook and pop it out. So here's my Forscan setup. Got my old tuning computer with HP tuners on it, but it's only got half of a screen, and I'm not really interested in fixing it. So I connect an external monitor, and then I just use this as a keyboard. Okay, so we're starting by connecting to the truck. Then we're gonna read the faults. See what we have going on. We have circuit out of range or circuit voltage on the steering angle module. It didn't like something that was going on. We're gonna reset the faults. Then we're gonna jump down into the service functions. So now we can go to our battery monitoring system reset, and we're gonna run the function. This procedure resets the monitoring system since we have fresh batteries in there. That's a good thing. Cycle the ignition, and the service procedure is done. Now let's go into the body control module and take a look at what type of battery is fitted in the vehicle and see if we can change it to AGM. Battery technology right there. We want to edit that. We're going to pick AGM since we're changing it. Now the truck will charge it effectively for a AGM battery. All right, so what if you don't have Forscan, but you do have a truck that has a BMS in it? Sounds like she's talking to me back there. Well, what you can do is do your batteries in the evening, lock your truck up, and then leave it overnight locked for at least 8 hours. That's what it calls for in the manual, and that's supposed to reset the battery monitoring system so that it knows that there's a fresh state of charge. That's an easy way to do it. I did it this way because I wanted to go into the service function and give it a try, make sure that it worked. I don't really have any plans to drive Bertha here for the next day or two, so she'll be sitting here safe anyhow, and hopefully it resets itself all on its own. If you got some good information out of this video, leave a comment below. If you would do your batteries differently, I'd like to hear how you would do it too. This is my first diesel, at least big old truck like this with dual batteries. So leave a comment, like, subscribe, do your thing. I appreciate you watching. I've got more content coming here on the Superduty. It'll be some service work coming up, and look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks.